Item F, consent agenda items. We have 10 items for consent. This is the perfect time if any board member has any questions on any of these items or would like to pull any of these items. And if not, I'll entertain a motion to move forward and recommend these items for approval.
A motion to approve the
I'll
10
second that.
consent items.
We have a motion by Mr. Martinez to approve the consent items.
I'll
and we have-
second that.
And we have a second by Dr. Holman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? The motion passes. We'll move on to items for individual consideration. We'll start off with the general manager's report.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, on your item, you'll have the January, February, and March calendar. And I'm not going to go into detail every single item on there because there are quite a bit, but we've marked in blue the monthly scheduled meetings for SFWA, as well as the PB board meetings, in green the other events or other noteworthy events that are going on in the community, as well as committee meetings. And then for the holidays, they're all in red. So we have an upcoming holiday coming on Monday, January the 20th, and PB's offices will be closed. As part of our calendar updates, and also is we have our holiday calendar for the remaining of the year. If there's any questions or concerns, let us know. We go through a process every year, the prior year, to look at any board conflicts or any type of SRWA conflicts, and I'll get together with any of any of your committees at this time that you chair to see when you want to have those meetings on there. The other question that I also have for industry updates, we did get notification from ERCOT that we are facing an extreme weather event coming in on Sunday. So staff is already doing preparations. We prepared for the non-event that just recently happened, although the northern part of the system did get freezing temperatures. We are monitoring, continuing to do all of our programs when it comes to that. I sent an email for what we've received notifications, and as the system progresses, it comes through the area, we'll notify you of any of those changes. With that, that concludes the information, and staff will be reporting on the various different other informational items on various things that are going on and other board member requests. Any questions?
Any questions on the general manager's report?
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on to the next one. We obviously don't have any items pulled out of consent. We'll move on to number 3. Employee Recognition Presentation Excellence Award and Outstanding Employee of the Year recipients. Presenting, Mr. Amaya.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members. My name is Jose Amaya. I'm the Training and Organizational Development Manager, and I'll be providing an update on the recipients of the Excellence Award and the Outstanding Employee of the Year Award. BPUB has a recognition program. One of the awards is called the Excellence Award. Recipients of that award are those individuals that have continuously lived our core values and go above and beyond. And right now we have a list of 6 of them. What I like to do is I like to play a video that we've already made for each one of them. It's about a minute and a half. And then from that select group of individuals that have received the Excellence Award, the general manager gets to select one individual from them that becomes the Outstanding Employee of the Year. So it's a very, very tough selection process. It's one of those that the employees have done an excellent job achieving it and earning it. Once we're done playing the video, some of those recipients are actually here. I like to see if we can actually do a photo op similar to what we did last year. I'll start from the bottom up.
I nominated Ruben for an Excellence Award more than anything because of his initiative and how instrumental he is in several of the projects that BPUB spearheaded this year, particularly the TEF distribution. For his part in the project, he went off and created this elaborate, sophisticated tracking system. We had approximately $31 million that we were refunding to BPUB's customers, and he made sure that every single check that was printed was accurately accounted for, and made sure that everything was processed in the correct way, and all the customers that needed to receive money did so. Ruben was really helpful in the ITS role that he has within the organization. He took it upon himself prior to hurricane season to meet with staff, particularly from the finance department, who usually helps out during emergency situations, to ensure that they had all their login credentials, to make sure that training took place, and that everybody that was going to be scheduled to help out during emergency situations knew how to do so, and so that we would avoid any confusion once an emergency situation was called into play. And so just his responsiveness and him being dynamic and being able to carry several of the projects that we have, it's just been really impressive, and he's extremely deserving of this nomination.
That was Ruben Saldivar. Next, we have Norberto Flores.
I nominated Norberto Flores for Excellence Award. He's been an operator for 32 years, and he's been a lead operator for the last 22 years. He's at SRWA. He takes complicated systems, complex systems, and he's able to break it down. He knows the technical aspects of the plant. He teaches others. He's the one that he knows the plant better than anybody. He teaches new operators. He teaches operators that are transferred back to SRWA. He can train them in the plant operations, laboratory analysis, data analysis, and troubleshooting. He can operate the RO plant. He can operate the MF plant. He's gone to plant 1. He can operate plant 1. He can operate water plant number 2. So we can send him pretty much anywhere that he's needed, and he's able to really operate the plants really well. And so really, Norberto is our MVP, our most valuable player, and he represents the core values of Brownsville Public Utilities Board.
That was Norberto Flores. Next, we have Louis Bennett.
I nominated Louis Bennett Jr. for Excellence Award. I believe he represents those values of BPUB, and he was an excellent choice for that award. And in my 40 years of my career, I don't think I've ever worked with a better wastewater manager than Mr. Bennett. And so he really knows wastewater treatment, he knows what's needed, he knows our sweet spot and how to get the plants running optimally. He's looking at Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C, and he really wants to take care of issues before they become a problem. He sets the example, maintains a high standard for himself, and expects the same of others. He's open and transparent, explaining the why behind his decisions, not only to his staff, but to me. And he strives to develop his staff so that they can be the future leaders of Brownsville PUB.
That was Louis Bennett Jr. Next, we have Eduardo Martinez.
Hi, my name is Estrella Solórzano, and I nominated Eduardo Martinez for an Excellence Award for this year. Eduardo is somebody that is very proactive. He is somebody that you can always count on. And this year, he has actually undertaken many projects, some of them because of the sensitivity and the security side. I can't discuss them today, but it doesn't matter when you need him. He is always available, always picks up the phone. And recently, he started overseeing the emergency management operations for the organization. We started looking for an opportunity to bring somebody in at a new position. He worked from job description all the way to hiring and establishing the tasks and responsibilities for this individual to overall protect the organization before, during, and after an emergency. So again, Eduardo, that is just one of the things that you worked on this year. You've worked on so many things, and I just want to thank you for everything that you do, for always being available, and for me always knowing that I can count on you. Thank you.
That was Eduardo Martinez. And then we have Danny Mares.
It is with great pleasure that I nominate Danny Mares for the Employee Excellence Award. Danny has provided exceptional contributions and invaluable support to the Employee Recognition Program, while at the same time maintaining a strong leadership presence as one of BPUB's engaging and responsive leaders. Over the past year, Danny has exemplified the values and work ethic that makes PUB thrive. Danny has been supporting and improving our recognition program. Because of him, we were able to transition all monetary awards to ACH, removing the need for administrative personnel to purchase gift cards. Beyond that, Danny has shown a knack for innovation and collaboration by always willing to have a transparent exchange of ideas and information, ensuring that everyone is on the same page and can contribute effectively. He's always willing to host a recognition event, to lend a helping hand in any BPUB endeavor, to share his expertise, and to also mentor colleagues. For these reasons and more, Danny is a role model and an integral part of our team. Please join me in congratulating him on this well-deserved recognition.
That was Danny Mares. And the Employee of the Year, as you can see, is quite a bit of a tough selection, very competitive. It ends up being Danny Mares. So a big round of applause for all the recipients over here. We'd like to invite the board, if you'd like to come down here so we can do take a quick photograph. Recipients. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That concludes the update.
Again, Marilyn, congratulations to all these fine employees. If you can only duplicate them and produce more like them, but congratulations to all of you. You guys are certainly the pride of PUB, and a lot of people out in the public don't realize the fine work that y'all do every day. Thank you. Any other comments from any of the board members?
Thank you all.
Just going to do another round of applause.
And Mr. Amaya, thank you for that presentation. We'll move on now to, what do we have, staff reports and presentations, a financial report. Mr. Pettis?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Mike Pettis. I'm the Chief Financial Officer, and I'll be presenting the financial performance report as of November 30, 2024. So starting off with the executive summary, this focuses on 7 categories. Each has its own gauge meter, red representing poor, yellow average, and green good. On the flow of funds, PUB did generate $1.5 million to replenish the improvement fund. Our debt service coverage is at 2.75 times, which is well above the 1.25 times minimum requirement. The fuel purchase and energy charge has generated an over recovery of $17.93 million. This will be used to offset any future market uncertainty. The current FPEC rate is at 5.019 cents per 1,000 kWh, and it's been constant at that rate since September. The COB cash transfer is slightly lower than budget due to the decrease in adjusted gross revenues, but it's so slight that we're still doing good here. The personal and non-personal expenses did come in lower by about $3.4 million from budget. A lot of it was primarily due to some current vacancies and some timing issues. And of course, as mentioned in the past, it's the accrual that was reported for September 30, 2024, that reduced this year's expenses. BPUB's average bill is lower than both the average MOU bill and the average IOU bill for the 1,000 kW residential user. That current average bill is at $111.26. The CIP progress, as reported, is a little deceiving. As of November, the spend is $4.33 million, which is 5.7% of the fiscal year 2025 approved plan. That in itself doesn't report much progress, but there was $31.8 million of outstanding purchase orders against that spend plan. That added together with the $4.33 million that's already been spent, totals $36.1 million that's been encumbered through the first 2 months of the year. And that represents 47.4% of the annual spend. And so in that sense, we do see a lot of progress there, right? And so a lot of these projects have to go through different phases. And so we anticipate that the expenses will take up in the coming months. So $7.7 million in projects are currently under design. Another $15.5 million in projects are under construction. An additional $4.5 million in projects are out for bids and will be issued a PO once awarded. So there is a lot of progress in this area. Now, the maintenance and reliability engineering manager continues to periodically meet with the directors and managers to review the project progress. And he does anticipate increases in the project spend beginning here next month. We should be spending close to $7 million and maybe between $5 and $7 million for the remainder of the year. So we'll continue to report back on the progress to the board on a monthly basis. And as mentioned, we're probably going to go back and rethink how we report the specific category. So we'll change this up next month. All key financial metrics are currently in compliance. Here we've got a condensed statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. We compare the current year to date to prior year's year to date, same period. We got operating revenues of $38,223,000. These are $1.8 million above last year's level. We did see base revenues actually decrease by $1.8 million, but we did see an increase in the fuel and the off-system energy sales by $3.6 million. Operating expenses were $30,158,000. These were about $1.2 million above last year's level. And here we saw an increase in the contractual and other services category. So we arrive at line 3 operating income of $8,065,000. Backing out the net non-operating expenses of $3,849,000, we arrive at an income before capital contributions of $4,216,000. Adding in capital contributions of $889,000, we end up with an increase in net position through the end of November of $5,105,000. Adding this to the net position at the beginning of the fiscal year, we end up with a net position at the end of the period of $480,969,000. Now here we have a condensed summary of revenues and expenses. This is based on the flow of funds. This is in compliance and in accordance with the bond ordinance. We compare the current year actuals to the year-to-date budgets. So here, operating revenues, $37,200,000. Those were $5 million below budget. We did see base revenues were under by about 1.3 below budget. And the fuel and off-system sales were below budget by $3.7 million. Other revenues were $3,050,000. This came in $816,000 below budget. And the variance represents a decrease in the ancillary sales generated through the ERCOT market. So we arrive at gross revenues of $40,250,000. We back out the fuel and SRWA contribution of $12,735,000, and we end up with an adjusted gross revenues of $27,514,000. This is the basis for the city of Brownsville's 10% calculation, so the city is entitled to $2,751,000 of that. Once we back out the other requirements for O&M, non-operating and debt service of $18,860,000, we end up with the balance available after requirements of $8,654,000. Then we back out the total cash utility benefit to the city of Brownsville, the $2.7 million, and we end up with the balance available for transfers out or PB uses of $5,902,000. That $5,902,000 was then used to fund the CIP budget of $4,366,000, leaving the balance to replenish the improvement fund of $1,536,000. And here again, the debt service coverage ratio achieved for the end of November was at 2.75 times. This concludes my presentation. There is a lot more financial information that's provided as backup for your review. At this time, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Pettis. Any questions or comments from the board?
One quick question on the 18,860,000. That includes the money for the new funds that we created, right?
No. You mean for the rate stabilization, power supply stabilization, or?
Yes.
No, those are bottom line. They're part of the transfers out.
For the decommissioning and stuff like
Right,
that?
right. No, those are bottom line. That particular line or row is just the O&M, personnel, non-personnel, and non-operating expenses and revenues, and the debt service, principal and interest, or just the interest, I'm sorry. No, it's principal and interest, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on this item? Okay, if not, thank you,
Thank
Mike.
you.
We'll move on to the next item. See, General Manager Procurement Authorization per board policy. Who's presenting on that?
Good evening, chairs and board members. My name is Hugo Lopez. I am the purchasing administrator, and I will present the quarterly report from October to December 2024. The total amount for the water wastewater administration is $1,022,382.66. The total amount for electric is $387,083.40. And the procurement have been done through a competitive bid, state contract, existing contract, and sole source letter. This concludes my report. Any comments, any questions?
Is there a slide with what you're saying?
I'm sorry.
We have one slide, it's page 130 in our board packets. That was on board effect, and I guess, right? Right after the financial report.
General Procurement. This is just a policy they're presenting? They're presenting a policy?
No, they're just presenting a table full with the numbers, the items, procurement type.
Did you
It
get
was
it?
just a one.
David?
Yeah, that was it, that's it.
But shouldn't it be up for the public?
Well, not tonight. I mean, we have technical.
Yeah, apologies for that. We didn't include it as in the backup for presentation.
We'll get it on the next presentation item. We are changing, please excuse on this, we are changing from a manual process to an online platform, and so some of the things, there's little quirks that we're experiencing, and so we'll make sure that we'll get everything kind of on our presentations and the other ones. You'll notice that you're on your presentation and your items, you'll have page numbers. As an example, your packet has 205 pages, so it's on page 123 of 205, the presentation slide that was not posted up there. We also have a couple little other quirks that are going through there. They'll hopefully by next presentation, we'll have everything ready by next board meeting.
And I think that's fine. There's a glitch. Marilyn, can you have this on for the next meeting so the public can see this, please?
Yes, we will.
And we appreciate the presenters' information and efforts here.
Thank you.
We have it here in our packet, but it's important that the public see this. Thank you.
Marilyn, can you explain what the purpose of this presentation is?
The purpose of this presentation is for everybody to know what the general manager procurement and authorization per policy. So as you can look in here, there's items that are below the 200,000 mark that the board member has allowed me. So every single contract that is, I like, as an example, line item number 1, Aqua Works Pipe and Supply, Core and Maintenance. Went through the procurement policies. I have authorization up to 200,000. So that amount was authorized with 68,823. So it didn't go before approval, but there's a policy in place that allows me to execute contracts less than 200,000.
But these, even though these don't need board approval, these also go through a standard procurement
Yes, they
process
do.
where several bids are needed, et cetera.
You can see, well, the public can't, everybody else can on the board, I guess. There's a legend in the lower left-hand corner where they talk about how they got each of these.
Oh, okay.
So it
Thank
says
you.
procurement type on the same line item that I mentioned, and it has A, and A has the legend competitive bid. B, state contract. C, existing contract. D, sole source. E, City of Brownsville MOU. F, emergency. G, in process of pending signature. And H, engineering services.
We recognize that the information's all here in the packet. We'd just like to, perhaps at the next meeting, Marilyn will have a public presentation, go over it rather quickly, and then have the slides up.
This is a standing item that is on there. If you'd like for me to modify it in any which way, we'll be happy to produce the information. There's a lot of backup to each and any one of these items here we can provide.
I think this slide has a lot of detail.
Got a lot of information. Dr. Samora, anything else before
No.
we move on?
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank Ms. Gilbert. We'll move on to BPUB system reliability and diocese, Mr. Martinez. I've got to look up that word.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm not Javier Martinez. He is, but I just wanted to introduce him to you guys, to all. He's our electrical system planning manager
Okay.
with over 8 years of experience, and he's our SME on any ERCOT-related operations, system planning, is difficult studies. So that being said, Javier.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cesar.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. As you mentioned, my name is Javier Martinez. I'm the Electrical Systems Planning Manager. I'm with the Electrical System Planning Department. Today I have a quick presentation on system reliability indices. Really, the focus of this presentation is to cover, using industry metrics used to evaluate BPUB's performance when it comes to system reliability, and also discuss some of the ongoing projects we have aimed toward improving system reliability. So the first metric I want to talk about is KD. Now, KD is the Customer Average Interruption Duration Index. So how is that defined? Essentially, it's the average duration of an outage experienced by a customer, right? So on the right, we have a graph. The blue is a representation of BPUB's KD value on a month-to-month basis, starting from January 2024, going all the way to September 2024. One of the ways I use KD is to measure our restoration, right? How quick are we to respond to outages, and how quickly are we to restore power? For example, in January 2024, you see there it's 76. That represents 76 minutes. So roughly, for all the outages that happened in January, it took us roughly about an hour and 16 minutes to restore power. Every month it changes because of, there's weather events, anomalies, we have feeder operations, et cetera. So we wanted to break that down on a month-to-month basis. Now, to compare our performance, we wanted to use the APPA KD medium value. And just to give you a little bit of context on that, the APPA is the American Public Power Association. We are actually subscribed to a service they provide called eReliability Tracker. The way the planning department utilizes this software is we actually store and log all of our outages that happen on a month-to-month basis. And at the end of the year, being part of this service, APPA actually takes our values and develops a benchmark report evaluating our performance for the previous year. And they compare us to all utilities that are utilizing the same e-reliability tracker. So they compare us to other utilities in the US, but they also compare us to similar size as a company as far as count of customers, area, region, et cetera. One of the metrics they provide in there is the median value. So that's what we use to evaluate our performance. So the orange line is the APPA, so it's 89 minutes. So anything below us shows that we performed relatively better than the APPA KD value. Anything above it is a reflection that we perform not as adequate to the median value. On this slide, we have July 2024, which went all the way up to 97 minutes. Using historical information, we found it was due to a feeder operation that when you have a feeder, a breaker operation, that's usually, most of our feeders have over 1,000 customers, so they were out for a long duration, and as a result, it's shown in the KD value. So that's where that 97 comes from. Any questions? I'm sorry? Oh, how do I define an interruption?
Yes.
Oh, so that's just an outage. So anything where the customer doesn't have power for over 5 minutes.
Okay, so anything less than 5 minutes would not be captured here.
Correct.
What about in the one with frequency? There's in a few slides below, there's one.
I'm sorry, frequency?
Yes, system average frequency duration index.
Oh, is that on the third? Yeah, I can get to that on the third slide.
But will that include interruptions less than 5 minutes?
Yeah, so anything that we evaluate, it's anything, so anything above 5 minutes is what we count and log. So if it's under that, it's not going to be shown.
So nothing of what you will show today will include interruptions less than 5 minutes?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you for the presentation. It's really good information. But we use an average of 89, but that's for every month. Do they ever do anything like, I would imagine like in the hot summer months or in the cold winter months, the outages may take a little bit longer. I'm not sure about that. I think it could be seasonal. Do they ever do any kind of seasonal studies or just a flat line?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, so unfortunately, no, we don't. There's not like seasonal metrics that we could utilize that they provide to us. That is something we want to look at and we want to explore. Obviously, we're using the median value, but we want to use probably more the average. And we could eventually, as we log more information, we could definitely develop metrics internally to evaluate seasonal thresholds.
And I have another question. Would it be possible to get our, the regional utilities that are part of this to be able to benchmark ourselves against other
Absolutely.
utilities?
Yeah, it's actually in that benchmark report. You can actually find there, and it'll tell you what region, and it'll compare you to other utilities of that same region. Yeah. If you're asking if we can get that particular information for each utility, I don't know if that's provided in the report. It's not.
So that's not part of it?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay.
I've actually read the report before a couple years ago. It might be something just nice to send out to the board if that's possible.
Absolutely. And like I said, we'll be receiving the 2024 probably around March and April, so we should have a most up-to-date benchmark report here shortly. So the next metric I want to talk about is SAIDI. SAIDI is the System Average Interruption Duration Index. And this is the average duration of an outage experienced per each customer serviced by the utility. So let me explain that a little bit more. So it's very similar to how you calculate KD, but it's different in that, let's say for the example of January 2024, the way we would calculate SAIDI, we would take all the outages, that happened in January, we would sum up the total duration of all those outages, and then we would divide it by the number of customers that we serve, so roughly around 53 to 55,000 electric customers, right? It's different in KD. KD is the same thing. You take the total duration of all the outages in that month, but you only divide it by the number of customers that were impacted by an outage for that month. So that's the two biggest differences between SAIDI and KD. SAIDI, one of the things that we want to do is we actually want to break this down to go into a more granular level. So what do I mean by that? We actually want to get the SAIDI value of all of our feeders. We can actually, now with some of the data that we have, we can actually get the SAIDI value for each one of the feeders and then focus on feeders that have high SAIDI values. Those would be like our red flags, and that way we can work on developing system improvements to help, restore and reduce the amount of outages that we have. So that's one of the strategies, and that's one of the ways we want to use SAIDI moving forward. And again, this is a system average value, so it's an evaluation of our host system. And again, it's a month-to-month comparison and using the APPA SAIDI median value as a comparison. Any questions?
Can you do this like year over year just with PUB? Do you have that?
I can, yes.
You can do that?
We can, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be kind of interesting to see whether or not we're staying the same or improving, and so we can develop strategies to address that.
Yes, absolutely. We've actually gone back right now. We do have all that information readily available through the eTracker, but we are developing other softwares called like Power BI. So we are importing data into that software to kind of break it down in that facet. So right now we have about 2 years worth of data, but we actually looking into getting all the years prior to that as well. So once we do that, we can absolutely do something like that.
Okay, thank you. Very good.
And the final metric I want to talk about is SAIFI. SAIFI is the system average system average interruption frequency index. And what that is essentially is the average number of outage a customer experienced. And the best way of describing it, it's essentially it's a way of quantifying how often the average customer loses power. So what do I mean by that? So if you look at March 2024, it has it as 0.19. So a customer experienced 0.19 of an outage. It's really hard to quantify 0.19 of an outage, right? SAIFI usually is a metric that's used on an annual basis. So it'll take all the outages for a particular year. And on an annual basis, BPUB SAIFI is around 2 to 3, which means that for every customer that we have, 53,000 customers, if our annual SAIFI is 3, that means each one of our customers experience about 3 outages per that year. That's essentially how you utilize SAIFI. If you were to sum all the values that are in January through September 24, if you take all these values, 0.72, 0.03, if we were to all add it up together, right now as of 2024, that value would come about to about 3.01, which is trending toward that 2 to 3. Obviously, we're still missing October, November, December. There's still more data to be added. So we suspect, or we know that value is going to be a little bit higher than normal. So we would have more than 3 outages per customer. Any questions?
I find it misleading to say that we have no more than 3 outages per customer when it doesn't include all of them. So maybe, we can be a little careful with that language.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I point this out is because in some neighborhoods, very frequent outages are a big problem. And if we are not, tracking that as one of our main metrics, we are really, we're really missing the point and what our customers really care about. If somebody has to reset, their microwave clock once a week, that's a lot. And as our as my fellow board member pointed out, being able to track this over time and to see, to make sure that we have goals for improvement and are there any current goals for improvement?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
We've actually developed reliability metrics for a year now. We have those thresholds. And we're going to be monitoring that on a month-to-month basis to see how we're performing moving forward.
Were there goals like 2 years ago, or is this something new?
Not to my knowledge, this is new.
Okay.
This is new.
Great,
Yes.
great.
Mr. Martinez, just real quick, for the people who are listening to this presentation, it's great information. Could you tell us very quickly, on a day-to-day basis, this information, you meet with your team, do y'all utilize it to prepare for the next month or for the next week? Tell us a little bit about that.
Right, so these are ongoing efforts we are going now. System reliability is very important to us. So we've kicked off quite a few initiatives we'll talk about in the next slide. But one of these initiatives is analyzing all of our breaker operations. That's very important to us. So again, using tools like Power BI, by importing all the data, all the outages, we can clearly see red flags, we can see problem areas, and with that, we've already utilized Power BI to kind of identify one of the biggest feeders that operate the most this year. And we've actually already sent out a team of engineers to go out and patrol, identify system improvement projects. All those have been given to our operation and maintenance team, and they're helping us right now to implement those actions. So yes, we are already ongoing with those efforts.
Okay, thank you.
Small point here. First of all, these are all IEEE standards that you're
Correct.
using, right? So we're not doing anything fancy, making anything up. That's very important. Second thing, though, just a small detail, is you might want to show the SAFE as a cumulative sum, just because we care about that end number. Just a thought.
I agree. Will do. Thank you so much.
Just
So-
curious on the planned outages, meaning when ERCOT wants us to, I don't know, do a rolling brownout or blackout, those are also taken into consideration here? Do they affect our service?
Well, no. Typically, when we do planned outages, we'll do load transfers. So if we're going to take out a particular transformer, so all the customers that are connected to that transformer, we'll actually move them to another feeder, to another transformer that's not going to be impacted by the outage, and then we take the planned outage. So planned outages would not be in here because because if we take out a transformer, we're not leaving thousands of our customers without power. We actually do all the load transfers prior. So-
Javier, could you explain a little bit for the board, when you do a load transfer, what is the customer experience?
It's usually a momentary outage if they need to essentially, because we have various switches throughout our distribution. So sometimes we have to operate a certain switch. We have to open. So when we open it, it'll de-energize the line, and then we'll connect them. We'll open there and close to another switch, and then we'll energize them. So usually they're without power, maybe anywhere between 5 to 20 minutes, but it's something that's planned. It's usually relatively quickly. But that's usually what it will do for planned outages.
Transfers, we don't lose power to the customers because we have the capability of transfer power to another substations next to it. So what we do, we close with parallel circuits, so eventually the customer will not lose power. In this case, will probably be a very worst case scenario where we have to de-energize the feeder to transfer a load. But typically that doesn't happen. It's parallel circuits, and they won't lose power. Just
And
transfer.
really, you're only transferring load to do maintenance.
To do maintenance,
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, this is not something we're doing for fun or,
No,
you know,
no.
bored.
It's
oh, we
requirement.
gotta fix
It's
something.
requirement.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I want to understand a little bit more what the plan is to improve customer experience going forward. Like, can you explain a little bit more of the metrics?
Customer experience?
Right, as far as outages.
Right. I mean, so obviously our goal is to minimize the duration of an outage, right? And that's what we're doing. We're trying to limit the frequency of them having an outage. Realistically, we don't want them to have an outage, right? We don't want them to interrupt their service. We don't want them to have to reset their alarm clocks. We understand it's a nuisance to have these ongoing issues. And so we're trying to find metrics, data to help us drive decisions, to help us allocate our resources to know where the problems are and eliminate them before they become a problem and cause an outage. So realistically, we think with some of these improvements that we're going to discuss here in this slide will improve their reliability and limit them having any outages. So hopefully their experience would be relatively well. That's the goal. The goal is to not have outages. Obviously, there's things that we can't foresee with weather, equipment failing, but we're doing our best, and so we're going to do we're developing strategies to help us limit those durations.
Okay, but like right now, we don't know, for example, like how we're doing, like for example, with these graphs, we can't really tell if we have improved in the last year or not, right? Because like a lot of it is circumstances beyond our control. Is that right?
Right. So right now, all we did is we want to focus on the what's going on now, right? We can't evaluate ourselves to our reliability things from last year, but right now we're mainly focusing, okay, what's our reliability now, and what do we need to start fixing now? Let's focus on that. That's where we're kind of geared to. So that's what these slides are mainly geared toward. It's to show what's our reliability now, and what we're doing to improve it.
Okay.
Although you do have that other data being put in the system, so you guys will be able to evaluate what you guys did before. But yes, this is a forward-looking operation.
Absolutely.
So I like that.
So as I mentioned, our goal is to minimize customer outages and limit the duration and limit the frequency. So we have a couple initiatives that we think are what we know will help improve our system reliability, and one of them is replacing direct buried underground cable. In our industry practice right now on how we do URD connections is, we'll do trenching, we'll install conduit, and then we'll run the wire through the conduit. Prior to some of these standards being standardized, some of the more common practice was to do trenching and then just lay the cable without any conduit, and then just burying it. Over time, if you have direct buried cable, it becomes to fail, and it can cause faults on the system. And because it's underground, it's very hard to detect, right? You can't really see it. So it makes it more difficult for our crews to go out there and find the issue and isolate it. We are very much aware of that. And so as a result of that, we've developed an initiative that will be focusing on identifying all of the potential URD direct buried cables and bringing them up to standard and replacing and installing all the correct infrastructure needed to limit potential outages caused by direct buried cable. The second one is analyzing distribution breaker operations. This is an ongoing effort. We have a lot of data. We know when a breaker operates. So we're using this data, we're logging it, we're analyzing it, and then we're developing projects to guide our engineers, guide our resources to focus on those feeders themselves. That's an ongoing effort that we're doing. And so just to discuss what that looks like is we'll send a field of engineers to go out there and patrol. They inventory everything as far as all the equipment that's out there. They'll identify if there's any leaning poles, bad transformers, bad jumpers, et cetera, bad fog bowls, and they'll make notations of those, and then we'll develop projects, service requests, to go out there and make those replacements as quick as possible. This is being proactive to help limit those outages, right? If we see something that's wrong, we'll go ahead and replace it as quick as possible. To improve system reliability. The next one is fuse coordination. We have a very expansive distribution system. We have, the way I think of our distribution lines, we have a primary line, and then our primary line, it'll have essentially branches. Let's think of a branch as a street. If you have a fault on a street, you want to isolate the fault to that particular street. You don't want it to escalate to the whole primary. You don't want to escalate to the whole feeder. So in some of the outages that we've had, we've identified that to be a problem. So we are working on particular feeders where we are ensuring coordination between the relay at the substation and the fuses, ensuring proper coordination so that way, if there is a fault, it doesn't interrupt all the customers on that feeder and just isolate it to that particular section. So that's another effort that we are going on to help improve system reliability. And finally, we have the implementation of reclosers and fault locators. This is a initiative that we are going with developing more of a smart grid. We want to install as much devices out there to, one, to collect data as far as voltage and current, but also when there is a fault to help us identify where the fault is as quick as possible. Anytime there's a fault and a breaker operates, we send a crew to go out there and they patrol the whole feeder. Well, fault locators are essentially like LED lights that we put on the lines, and so if there's a fault and it's within its protection zone, it'll light up and it's a blinking indication, so we know that the fault is within that vicinity, and it helps narrow down where the fault is and essentially improve the limit how long the duration is. It's to help our crews to go out there and find the fault faster. There's a lot of new technology nowadays, and so some of the things that we're looking at installing fault locators that we can get the data with through SCADA. So anytime there's a fault, our operators would be able to visually see what area, what intersection the fault where the LED is indicating, and that way they can navigate traffic to that location. Instead of them having to patrol the feeder from beginning to end, we want to use this type of technology moving forward as well. And for that, I'll open up for any questions.
Are there other key metrics that you did not include?
Are there other? No.
So these are the main key metrics?
Those are the three main ones that we are utilizing. Yes.
So how are you going to track outages less than 5 minutes?
How I'm going to track for outages less than 5 minutes?
Yes.
Like I said, we're focusing on sustained outages. Those would be momentary outages if they lose. So typically, if you have like a fault, let's say you have a tree branch that hits the line, the power will go out. So the breaker, the recloser at the breaker will see it, it'll open. And then the recloser, its functionality, it'll wait 15 seconds, right? And then what it'll do, it'll automatically close the breaker back in. And when it closes, it's going to check if the fault's still there. If the fault's no longer there, the breaker, it closes and stays closed. So yes, there was an outage or the customer lost power for like 15 seconds, but the power has been restored. We do log that as an open and close, but we don't, we don't use that as one of the main ones that we're focusing on. Like I said, right now we're trying to focus on sustained outages.
I would like to add that those less than 5 minutes or very quick outages typically are without or way to see them. So I think the AMI project will become very handy in identifying those locations, the particular houses, service drops that we like out of our control. Like we might be a loose connection on the service drop that we have no way to see it on the system other than when a customer reports it. But
right,
with the
so
AMI,
customers do report it, and there are neighborhoods where customers are constantly reporting outages. So if it's a tree branch, you know, I would find it highly unlikely that a tree branch has been consistently, you know, like hitting a power line for the last 10 years, and that's been causing, you know.
well, we can track that.
So there are ways, like with customer reporting. Marilyn, I believe you had told me that you were aware of this issue, and there were actual reasons for it.
Those are actual momentaries, and momentaries, we follow the IEEE standards, and so if we are going to concentrate on momentaries, we probably need to have a larger conversation of the amount of staff that we need to add and what that rate impact will be, but we'll be happy to look into the various different momentaries. So right now, what I mentioned is these four reliability, things that we're doing on how to reduce outages and improve reliability, which are the sustained ones. If we need to look into anything less than 5 minutes, then it is something that we need to look at how the industry practices, and we can come and give you another presentation of what the definitions for each one of these things happen to report and how we do that if we follow something other than the industry practice. So momentaries are something that we can track, definitely, and we know when we have them. They just reported and said something very key, open and close reclosure. It goes 15 seconds, and sometimes it does it multiple times. When it does it multiple times, then add those 15 seconds, and when the system goes, and that adds up to 5 minutes. And so that means the fault was cleared, and whatever that may be. I understand that the branch, it could be one section of the system. There may be other areas. They may have another section of the system that the branches go on and off. It could be palm trunks. It could be palm trees. There's lines that are doing that. We're working through having various different ways of improving how we look into the system, and one of them is to look into the AMI. We're going to be looking into potentially where those areas are instead of by feeders, but by branches. We'll have more of a visibility of what's going on in each individual circuit at a smaller section of the system.
Can you map customer reports of these issues right now?
Yeah. So
Can you show us a map for next month?
show us a map of all the
Yes.
all the outages.
So that we can see the hotspots, including, including less than 5 minutes, more than 5 minutes. You could have it color-coded, but I think it would be very useful for the board to see where the hotspots are.
Yeah, we're actually working on that. We've had those conversations. We're working with our GIS to do that. What we want to focus on is so when you get an outage, a customer calls in, and then they'll put the address of who the customer that called in. But sometimes the problem is maybe 2 blocks down, 1 block down, right? And they bring all the outage, everyone that calls in, they'll isolate it to that one service request. So one of the things that we want to focus on, I think something that's more telling, is where did the fault actually happen and what actually caused the issue? So we are looking at ways to track where we actually did the repairs. That's something we don't have right now, but we need to geocode it. So that way we can log where they fixed the issue and then create a heat map of all the problem areas of where we restore power. That is a true indication of a heat map as far as where the problems lie. As far as...
So you currently don't have that?
At this time, no. We are working with that. Yeah, we're trying to move in that direction, yes, but we
Mr.
don't have that
Martinez,
right now.
I want to stop you right there. Look, we understand this is important, what y'all are doing to try to improve the system throughout the city. We understand that there are the times when there are outages for under 5 minutes. I've experienced this firsthand. If you're close to palm trees on a windy day, there's going to be a high opportunity that you're going to have a disruption. If you guys can put together something for Dr. Zamora and all of us to see next time in terms of trying to identify frequency hotspots, that would be great. This is a lot of information. It's going to take a lot of work to improve the system.
Yes.
You know, it's not going to happen overnight, but it definitely is really a good information, very important information for our community.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
I know this data-driven approach is relatively new, and I just want to say I'm glad y'all are doing it. Thank you very much. I do appreciate this.
Yeah. Thank you.
I wanted to say that this is fairly new department, 6 months, a little more 6 months on board, so he's doing a great job on it. So
Wow.
that's
Thank
all this
you.
initiative is all because he's making it happen.
The fact that it's a new department, the fact that you guys are tackling it this way lends me to believe that this is going to improve the system, but it's going to take some time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Our next item is water strategy, 2025 water strategy by Mr. Dombrowski.
Good evening, Mark Dombrowski, the Chief Operating Officer. Back in November, Chair, you asked us to develop a water strategy. So we've been working on that since then, and all of you should have received a hard copy on the dais tonight of that draft. So what this is designed to do is really to address the challenges of how we're going to ensure a sustainable and resilient and affordable water supply for our community. It also creates a strategic framework to help us prioritize these decisions. So first, to identify these strategies, we're going to start identifying metrics and budgets and timelines on these projects. And then finally, this is really a living document. Even when we completed the draft last week, we had to come back and make 2 more updates because a piece of legislation had passed or a grant had been awarded. So these things are on a constant changing basis. When we got into this, we realized that this was one of many pieces that's going to go into our strategic planning process. And so We have many plans across the utility, from our technology roadmap to the integrated resources plan, which I hope you'll all be there on Wednesday for us to review. We have our general emergency plan, prior strategic plans, asset management plan. So this is one other piece that's going to fill into that. Right now, we are developing the request for qualifications in the statement of work for our next strategic planning process that will identify the 2025 through 2029 strategic plan.
Wait, so we're hiring somebody else to come and do the strategic plan?
Traditionally, you hire a consultant, come in and help facilitate that process.
But we did that a year ago and it didn't quite work out, right?
Well, I've done about 15 of them, and it usually does work out. So I wouldn't use that as an example of the
I
model.
think you're thinking about the IRP.
No,
So-
we had consultants for the strategic plan.
We had,
Last year.
the last plan was 2019 through 2024. They had a consultant that came in, developed the plan back in 19. They were brought back in to do an update in 24. We decided that the update was not fruitful, so we stopped the process in anticipation of doing a new complete strategic plan, which is what we're doing the RFQ for now.
Okay.
So of course, part of our strategy here is, one of the missions that we're supposed to be doing here is to ensuring sustainable, resilient, and affordable water supply. So we see that as part of our mission here at BPUB. Also, we want to be a Texas leader in water management. When people talk about innovative things that are being done to help communities, we want them to think of Brownsville Public Utilities. We've identified 9 specific strategies or values for us to consider. I'm not going to read them all here, but you'll see that there's a constant theme through here, as well as the strategies that we are adopting. One of our challenges, we are heavily dependent on the Rio Grande watershed. And so in the 2 reservoirs, Amistad and Falcon. So the gray area there on your left, that is the watershed that feeds the Rio Grande in our reservoirs. On the right side, as of January 1st, you can see a large portion of that watershed is in either extreme or exceptional drought. And so we know this because our reservoirs are down. It's a little disconnected because we here in Brownsville, things are green, we have plenty of water here, but where our water comes from is where our problem is. And if you look at what's going on, we don't think it's going to get a lot better. So right now, we depend on the Rio Grande for about 72% of our water. So we're a little too dependent on that one river. If you look at changes in our climate, we've seen that both Amistad is down 33% and Falcon at 21.5% since the 1980s. So flows into those reservoirs are dramatically down over time. Then as of December 28th, we're at 20.7 for our combined storage. So what we're experiencing now, we're going to experience more often in the future. And the agreement with Mexico, right now they're about 1.1 million acre feet of their current debt. And they've been short 3 out of the last 6 water year cycles. And so to believe that somehow a change in international policy is going to help us out, I think would be a false policy. We need to look at other methods besides depending on the Rio Grande. Right now we have our average water demand is about 22 million gallons per day. I want you to remember that number as we go through the rest of the slide. So, and again, as I pointed out, about 72% of our water comes from the Rio Grande, and about 28% comes from the groundwater or SRWA. So at our plants, we have 2 water treatment plants that use surface water. Water treatment plant number 1 over by Silas Ray, it has a capacity to treat about 20 million gallons per day. Water treatment plant number 2, which is right behind us here, it can also treat 20 million gallons per day. It can take water from the Rio Grande, but it can also take water from the Resaca Delegada. And if you remember, I told you that we have about 22 million gallons is our average daily demand. Well, these 2 plants alone do 40 million gallons. So that tells us if we have a dependable water supply at our plants, we can more than handle the demand on our water system. So for these, the surface water, it's that water supply that's the challenge. At SRWA, while the plant is at design capacity of about 10 million gallons per day, we're actually getting about 6.5 on a regular basis. We are addressing that through some optimization studies and some rehabs of our wells. But you'll see the water that SRWA is brackish groundwater from the alluvium, which does not require water rights, and based on our hydraulic reports, there's plenty of supply there. So the challenge at SRWA is gathering the water from these shallow wells and then treating it. It's much more expensive than surface water. But we have several projects underway that you'll read about in the water strategy there. So between all of our surface water plants and SRWA, that gives us about 46 million gallons per day capacity to treat water against a demand of 22. So plant-wise, we have plenty of capacity to store water. We just have to make sure we have the water to treat. The 14 strategies that I mentioned earlier, so we've identified 14 of these. We're defining these strategies. We're assigning metrics and putting some planning behind each of these. We've identified current and planned programs, projects, efforts, and initiatives that move us towards accomplishing the goals of each of these strategies. And if you, in the draft report, you'll see that there's much more detail. So I'm not going to go through all 14 of these, but I'm going to highlight 5 of these that I think are important for us to discuss. So as I pointed out, we have plenty of capacity to treat water, and it's getting the water that's the challenge. So on our brackish groundwater, so we have plans both to increase the capacity at the plant as well as get more water through more wells. So we have, you've heard before, the optimization and the expansion of SRWA. That will increase it by 13 million gallons per day. We have the indirect potable reuse. So again, I pointed out water treatment plant number 2 can take water from Resaca de la Guerra. So we have the ability to divert 8 million gallons a day of water from our wastewater treatment plant that meets TCEQ standards, and it flows out to the Gulf of Mexico now, send it to the Resaca and treat it to a water treatment plant. That would give us 8 million gallons more per day to treat. So that would supplement water coming from the river. And finally, the 1944 Water Treaty. As you know, recently we had Minute 331, in which the Alamo and the San Juan River in Mexico, which do not flow into our reservoir, so the water can't be impounded, weren't normally used by Mexico to hit their 1944 water debt. They reached an agreement that allows them to use those waters. They have already started releasing them. They've been used by irrigation districts. And so what that does is for the water that is stored in the reservoirs, more is stored now for municipal purposes later on rather than the irrigation purposes. So it's another source of water from Mexico to send us. Water conservation. So many utilities in the country that in arid regions are using conservation as their first choice to supply water. We need to start thinking along those same lines. So we have our water shortage alert. We are in stage 2. We're going to give you an update on the efforts we're having there. We are updating that plan currently with a consultant to create a more science-driven, data-driven type plan. We have our water and wastewater rate study. So we moved to tiered rates in water, so the more water you use, it sends an economic signal for those customers to use less. And finally, our toilet rebate program, which was very successful. We may try doing that more often than just summers, but leaky toilets is one of the major causes of water leaks in homes. And so it's an inexpensive fix that can save up to 4,000 gallons per year in a home. Invest in system improvements. And so once the water's been treated between there and the home, there's a lot of things that we can do to reduce losses. I have looked at our losses. We have about 14% system losses in our last study, which is actually pretty good for the industry, but we can do better. So a couple of things we're doing here is on our system, we have a very large project, a raw water river intake facility project, which is in the design stages now.
Mark, sorry to interrupt you. So one problem that I've seen repeatedly is when water leaks on the street don't get fixed. And I think that that might fall under water conservation measures. Now, I don't have the data, but I wonder what proportion of loss that would be, that would contribute to just, like system losses. I've heard in other utilities, I guess, it could be up to 30% of the water loss, up to 30% of potable water gets lost. You should know this better than I do.
Yeah, so that's called non-revenue water. So that's water you treated at the plant that you didn't sell, right? So it was lost somewhere between the plant and the meter. So those leaks in the streets or leaks before it gets to the meter, that's accounted for. And ours is about 14%, as I mentioned, which is actually pretty good, much better than the industry average. But we're shooting to do even better than that. So that counts towards that non-revenue water, the leaks you see.
I see, and that would get fixed under which category here?
That would be invest in system improvements. So we have a couple of things we're doing here. So first is when we take the water in from the river to replace those pumps, so they're nearly 80 years old. When something breaks on them, we have to have the parts manufactured. So we have a project to replace those intakes. AMI is going to be a huge help for us in identifying water leaks. So many times customers don't even know they have a water leak until they get a bill. So by seeing AMI, we can actually see daily consumption. And if we see anomalies in the data, we can alert customers earlier and find those leaks. We've got our elevated storage tank that we just put in South Texas. We'll be bringing down the old one at UT Brownsville TSC campus soon. And then finally, a water distribution, water management audit. I think that's what you're referring to, Dr. Zamora, which is we do studies to identify those areas of our system that are non-revenue water. That means water that we're not selling. We had 3 or 4 recommendations that we're already acting on. One of those was AMI. That was the biggest loss, was leaking meters. So we are replacing all of those water meters now under the AMI program. Leverage grant fundings. So things are always better with other people's money. So we're doing a lot on the grant side. As I mentioned, AMI, we got $5 million to grant money to help on the AMI project. We are pursuing a grant with WaterSmart, which is Bureau of Reclamation, for $10 million for SRWA. Again, that's to improve both the supply of water, the brackish water, as well as our treatment capacity. We're pursuing funds with the Drinking Water State Fund, and we are, the President signed on January 4th the Water Resources Development Act, and that authorized $40 million for water and wastewater infrastructure here in Brownsville. So that's going to go a long way to help us address the latest infrastructure issues for us.
I do want to add that the $40 million that came in, if you go to the previous slides, that was signed by the President on January 4th of 2025, that's a process that we would have to access, and it may take up to 2 years to be able to access, because right now the 25 plan is already in place. So this is likely for the 26 plan, and so in 26 is when we would be able to access. So this is something that we would be applying for, in essence, on what projects we need to do. So just because you see this funds here, I don't want any misunderstandings that the money's automatically, oh, we're going to get $40 million next year or this year. It has to go through a process in place, and it is for the vicinity in Brownsville prioritizing, so anybody who is a provider in Brownsville can apply for these funds.
So finally, the last one I want to address is participate in regional efforts. So we spend a lot of time with different agencies across the valley, across the state, to address our water issues. One of the things that I always like to point out, which is SRWA is probably the premier model for regionalization for water resources. So it's several cities that are parts of that in the navigation district. We are the largest desalination plant here in South Texas, and so it's been going on. It's formed in '81, but the plant became production in 2004, I believe. So it's a great example of what you can do regionally to address water shortages. We also participate on Region M Water Planning Group. Our CEO is on that, represents municipalities. We have the Texas Clean Rivers Program, which really talks about water quality that we are represented on, as well as the Rio Grande Water Master that helps manage that resource for all the region. So we spend a lot of time to address this. We think regionally is a great approach. It's not a zero-sum game, but you have to be at the table. You've heard the saying, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. So we spend a lot of time making sure that we are at the table. So with that, I can take any questions.
That SRWA, I understand the president of that's pretty good looking. Have you, or will you be showing this to the city? I think y'all might want to see it. I don't know.
We can, we're going to leave this in the draft status because I said these things are changing almost on a daily basis, but we would be glad to share that with the city. Absolutely.
Okay, cool. And tell me about these tired water rates. Sorry, there's a typo. I had to just have fun with it. Okay, that's all I got.
Mark, just real quick, I've listened to you, the city's requirements for water for 20 million.
About 22 average. Yeah.
We're producing 40, 42.
We have the capacity to, right.
That doesn't mean that we produce that much.
That's correct.
Because then you have to put storage.
Right, so pull water from the river, and we store it in our reservoirs, and some of the zakas, but most of the reservoirs. And that's where we treat the water from, and then we push it out to our system, to our customers.
Listening on our ability to provide water to incoming commercial projects. I'm sorry for those listening on our ability to provide water for incoming commercial projects, our relationship with the port. We're in a position to be able to work with them, obviously, depending on the scope of their project.
Right. So through our key accounts, we often meet with these large industrial customers. We understand what their water needs are. We explain our situation. As with any new development, if it's large requirements, they have to buy water rights. Of course, water rights doesn't help if the actual water is not there. But we do work with all those customers in those planning and planning of their water requirements.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a general question. It sounds like the source of the water is probably our limitation, right? We have more capacity than what's available, perhaps.
Right. So certainly storage is a limiting factor. We have storage requirements that are put on us by TCEQ. So much storage we have to have. But if we were to try to produce the maximum amount of 40 million gallons per day, we'd run out really quick. There's also the amount of water we can draw from the river at any one time. We have to manage that well. We work with Rio Grande Water Master to release that water from the reservoirs and send down here. So there are a lot of limiting factors. But the point is, we have enough infrastructure to treat the water that we can get. So the real issue is, can we diversify the sources of water so that if the river's down, we've got this other source to depend on. We can pick and choose which source we want to use. Of course, conservation is always first choice.
Yeah. Yeah. So just curious on any new technologies. I don't know, to extract water from, let's say, the atmosphere or even the ocean. Right? Is that feasible or not? Just in general, I'm curious if those are things that we're going to consider.
We are considering that. So we're looking at all options. We're looking at saltwater desal, which is like from the Gulf of Mexico, which is very expensive given the salinization of the water. To get it out there, it takes much more energy than the brackish water. So it's very expensive. It's a very expensive alternative. But we are looking at, as an alternative, we've talked to some industrial customers about the potential of a industrial-only plant, so it just serves industry, not to the potable drinking water standards. We have the reuse that we're exploring with our Robindale plant. There are a lot of other options out there for getting water. Question is, are they economically feasible? I think that's the real challenge, and to put it into the scale, we need to get millions of gallons per day. So we're looking at all these options. We're part of these regional efforts is a look at that, and it may be pooling our resources, just like SRWA did when we pulled, 92% of it, but we pulled resources from other cities to use that brackish plant.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes, sir.
Mark, so I'm sure you guys have thought about the next steps, right? And I bet you've got the strategy, but the implementation, that's real hard, right? Because to me, this is like lottery money. It's like we're talking how to spend lottery money, but we haven't won the lottery yet. In a certain respect, because this is going to take a lot of resources, a lot of money, planning, project calendar, vendor management. It's a very summary report, but behind this, there's probably a stack of papers this much that just to do half of this stuff is going to take. So what are your thoughts and ideas for next, just generally, very general, high levels, next steps?
So many of these projects are already underway or planned. For example, the river intake pump is a project that's moving forward. The optimization of SRWA, the optimization and the expansion, we're talking about $220 million. So we're going to need help funding those. So we can't depend on that because we don't have that funding source yet. Conservation is probably the least expensive way, but it means having our customers help change their habits, which is tough, change management. So I think looking at all of these, putting together plans and having lots of options so that when one fails because of funding or some sort of technology, that you have other options available is the way we approach. That way, I pointed out we have so much capacity that really what we need to do is find different sources of water to treat. So whether it's water coming from the Alamo and San Juan rivers, or it's water coming from our wastewater treatment plant, we have different sources to draw and use our plants now. Brackish is going to have a unique type of treatment plant, but when they built SRWA, it was built to be expanded. So we have the real estate, we have the power there, we have the pipelines there. That's the most cost-effective, although very expensive way to expand our brackish water treatment is to expand SRWA.
So kind of a fun math exercise, 22 million gallons per day. We get, or the optimization for SRWA, which is underway, is going to get us to 10 million gallons per day. If we do the water reuse program, that should get us 8 million gallons per day. And I know that's being studied right now, right? You guys are looking at how to implement that. And so then all of a sudden, just if we hit those two marks, now we're only pulling 4 million gallons per day out of the river, which puts us in a much, much better position.
I think all that information is very valuable for the public that's listening, for the city of Brownsville. Thank you for that, for this report. Okay, we're going to move on, and we have a drought update. That's always fun. Mr. Mariscal.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board. Rene Mariscal, Division Manager for Water Resources, Conservation, and Compliance. Mark already touched a little bit on our current drought condition, but let me provide the latest update. U.S. combined ownership at Amistad and Falcon as of January 4th stood at 20.8%. That's the U.S. combined ownership. That's down from last year at this time, which was at 22%. So we're really looking at, we're beginning the calendar year a little more than a percentage lower than we were last year. Amistad, as of this reporting, is at 20.8% of conservation capacity, and Falcon at 13%. Mexico, on January 4th, stood at 12.6% conservation capacity. It's still remain in stage 2. Quite frankly, we've been in stage 2 for over a year for sure. Looking at the last 3 readings here in December, you'll note that we began a slight trend, slight for sure, but nevertheless, that's probably as a result of the Rio San Juan. That's plays a role in it, the result of the Rio San Juan deliveries. So you see a trend there. Quite frankly, this morning we're actually at about 20.9%. So a little uptick, at least it's headed in the right direction, albeit slow. As of January 7th, the Water Master had requested and received from the Ansel Duas Dam transfers about 30,000, roughly about 30,000 acre-feet from Rio San Juan of the agreed-upon 121,000 acre-feet, 121,607. So the deliveries from Rio San Juan are clearly underway. As of November, for municipal users, what they call DMI, domestic municipal industrial users, Mexico had provided about 2,305 acre-feet. So essentially, it's just adding a little more to the reserve for municipals as well. Okay. National Weather Service outlook, it's really similar to, last month from January to March. In 2025, it's expected to average out warmer than drier, average out warmer and drier than normal. Drought dryness concerns will increase through the winter and early spring with cooler and especially drier air intrusions like we have now. Confidence remains high that the total combined storage will remain at these levels at least through March. Wanted to touch a little bit on the water restrictions. Just provide an update. We really haven't provided an update in quite some time. We remain in stage 2. Stage 2 restrictions are, from stage 2 to stage 3, you'll see that it essentially just gets tighter, right? Stage 2, we have biweekly landscape irrigation and lawn watering, and that's limited to, based on address, and it's twice per week. And there's also landscape variance for anybody with new grass, they can submit a request for a variance that allows for up to 4 weeks. We still have restricted residential car washing, golf course water management plan. So from our 2 golf courses, what we do, we ask them to provide a water management plan, just something to show us that they are restricting their usage. And then there's also the water on request only at restaurants. Non-essential watering is prohibited for stage 2. And then water repairs, leaks should be repaired as soon as feasible. You'll note one of the things that we wanted to touch on is the violations or enforcement. Really for stage 2, at this point, what we do is issue warnings. As of 2024, just as an example, our safety staff provided about 25 to 28 door hangers. Really what we're doing right now is just issuing warnings via door hanger where we provide information. Essentially, it's just educational at this point, educational information. So again, in 2024, about anywhere from 20 to 25 door hangers were issued. And we have noticed that even our variance requests have dropped compared to 2022, where we had in 2022, we had about, these are not variance, requests via our website. We noticed in 2022, we had about 18 requests. People asking about restrictions, hey, well, how do you do this? What are these, asking questions about the restrictions. In 2023, that dropped down to 8. And here in 2024, last year, we only had literally three inquiries on restrictions. On stage 3, same thing.
What do you think that means?
I like to think that hopefully the word is getting out. Clearly, when in stage 2, at first when we came out, there was a lot of questions. But I think because of all, at least that's my positive thinking, that a lot of the information is getting out, that there have been quite a bit of public outreach, and that hopefully those folks are familiar with the.
What about data? Do you have data on usage? Has that dropped?
On what that is?
Usage.
On usage, that we don't.
You don't have data?
Well, we have water plant data, on the various usage via the water plants, but specifically tied to, and we have data, for example, on HATs, where we estimate how many gallons have been saved, but specifically what we have been noticed is that the trends are following just the rain events. We noticed less usage and so forth.
We do have data on all our customers, so we track that. We're currently analyzing it as a part of the water conservation and drought response plan. So we're looking at a number of elements that use that water data. So we do have data. We're analyzing 23 and 24 right now.
Years 23 and 24?
Yes.
Okay. And when do you think that could be presented to the board?
Give me till March.
Okay. Thank you.
And you're looking for data, Dr. Samora, comparisons on old data to new data based on their efforts to try to inform the public to conserve?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and back to stage 3 again, we're not there. One of the things is, Mr. Dombrowski mentioned, we are updating that water conservation plan. So although those are the current restrictions for stage 3, that may vary, those restrictions may change. And the same thing for stage 2. We anticipate the new plan may be completed here at the second quarter of FY25. So here in the next month, we'll have an update with the new plan and potentially new restrictions.
I mean, if I may, I don't think the messaging is very effective. I'm a board member. I hear these updates regularly, and I had no idea that we had restrictions for residential car washing. I thought that, you know, you use a hose, you could be at home and washing your car. So there's definitely room for improvement on messaging. Thank you.
Okay. A few of the metrics for the drought messaging. This is information provided by our communications staff. We have information on our website. There have been, this is 2024, calendar year 2024 data. Press releases, billboard, you see the number of impressions, you'll see a lot of Facebook posts and Twitter posts, and then community presentations and discussions. Just in 2024, there were about 53 drought/conservation, either events or discussions to Rotary clubs, BISD, career events, and so forth. And then our PB, internal PBTV messages, 4 were developed in 2024. And then lastly, just wanted to touch on the Amistad Dam, provide an Amistad Dam update. Here in December 10th, the Amistad, there's been some, has some challenges, clearly. If identified 55 sinkholes within the earthen embankment there of the dam. And on December 10th, Minute 332 was signed by both the U.S. and Mexico. There's tighter construction of a composite cutoff wall to reduce the risk of failure at the dam. The study began, design began in September 17, 2024. It's not complete yet, but they've come to an agreement for the cost share. The cost share will be 56.2% for the U.S. and 53.8% on will be provided by Mexico. They're starting to look at this design. There's a discussion of a potential cutoff wall that runs right down the center, so just to keep from water intrusion from one side to the other. This is the estimated construction time is 30 months from when they complete design. They're still having to look at the funding for this, and they're looking at about a 1.6 mile repair that's needed there at the dam. Any questions?
Any questions from any of the board members? No, we appreciate your report, Mr. Mariscal, and look forward to some rain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move along. Mike, you have a presentation on the, presentation, discussion, possible recommendation of status of request for qualifications for financial advisor services.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So our current contract with our financial advisor expires or ends next month.
Okay.
So with that said, we did issue out a request for qualifications for financial audit services. We sent out the RFQ back on November the 9th, and we sent it out to 10 vendors. We only had one vendor that responded. So subsequently, BPUB staff followed up with the firms who did not respond. None indicated any issues with BPB communications or with our processes. Several mentioned that they simply missed the deadline, but would be interested in submitting a proposal if it is re-advertised. Now, this contracts typically carry a term of 5 years. The current contract was entered into with Estrada Hinojosa back in 2019. The 5 years ended in 2024. Now, the contract did have an option to extend for 1 additional year, which was exercised and approved by our board this past year. Estrada Hinojosa has been our FA since 2003. Some additional information, the previous 2 RFQs did bring in more respondents. The 2019 RFQ, which is the current contract, did bring in 3 respondents, 2 of which were invited to come in and make presentations to the board. The board then selected our current vendor, Estrada Hinojosa. The 2012 RFQ did bring in 6 respondents, and here again, the board went ahead and approved Estrada Hinojosa as our FA. So this item was presented to the Finance Committee on January the 8th. So at this point, I would ask if any of the Finance Committee members have anything to add.
I was there. I don't have anything to add. I mean, we listened to the presentation. We have our current financial advisor as the lone finalist, I guess. Mr. Variado?
No, I don't really have anything to add. Who is the city's financial advisor? Estrada Hinojosa? Yeah.
Can we just extend the deadline to get more?
It's going to be up to the board. So we are requesting the board to provide any guidance. If we go out for RFQ, that process will take between 2 to 3 months.
Yeah. I mean,
so
I think we gave everybody an ample time. No one complained about the process or the deadline. If you go and you miss a deadline, I mean, that's the way it goes. I mean, there's not really, it's not anything that PUB did. It's just that they just missed the deadline. And financial advisors shouldn't miss deadlines. I mean, everybody's human, makes mistakes, but I think it was a fair process and we gave everybody an equal chance to submit a bid. You know, I would recommend that we renew with our existing financial advisor.
Well, okay, Mike, give us, if there's no other comments, can you give us your recommendation, the administration's recommendation at this point?
Recommendation would be to allow our general manager and CEO to negotiate a contract with the sole respondent, Estrada Hinojosa, for financial services for a term of at least 5 years.
Okay, we have a recommendation from administration. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, move to approve.
We have a motion to approve that. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second by Dr. Holman. All those in favor, say yea.
Aye.
Aye.
All those against?
Against.
Make the record reflect that Dr. Samora is against. Motion passes. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to this last action item, Mr. Eddie Hernandez.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Oops, went the wrong way. One of the vendors for the AMI project is Badger Water Meters, or they are the vendor that provides our water meters and the radio communication equipment for our water meters. The item today is to cover a consumer price index increase for 2025, and we're also trying to lock in the CPI increase for 2026. The increase in cost is for the cost of goods delivered in 2025 and in 2026. The project, we're actually beginning to order the material now. We'll have 42,000 retrofit meters, 15,000 brand new meters, and 57,000 endpoints. The initial Badger increase, the initial increase that Badger proposed was 3.6% for 2025, and also additionally for 2026. We negotiated that down to 2.9% for 2025, and a maximum of 3% or actual CPI, whichever is lower, for 2026. So we're happy with that. It is provided for in the contract, so this is something that was expected. We just didn't know what that number would be.
What did you project it to be when budgeting this? Just out of
We
curiosity.
really didn't have a projection for it. In reviewing it with legal, it was kind of left a little open-ended on the contract. So being able to tie it to CPI was actually a big win for us.
Okay, but we didn't budget for this increase when
Specifically,
creating the
no,
budget?
but we do have it budgeted. Well, we have it generally budgeted in our contingency budget. So we're not asking for additional funds. We're staying within the $29 million. This will come out of our contingency budget, which right now is at about 1.9. So if we take this 419,000 out, our contingency will drop to about 1.5 million.
Eddie, do you see this contract going beyond 2026?
No.
So this is it?
God willing.
Okay.
And that's why, one of the reasons that we're trying to lock down not only 2025, but 2026 also, so that way we don't have to deal with this. But it's pretty standard. When you're dealing with equipment,
Yeah.
it's pretty, you're not gonna pay 2024 prices in 20.
No, I understand.
Okay. There was a question that was asked by we did present to the Finance Committee, and there was a question, well, if we took delivery of all meters in 2025, could we avoid the 2026 CPI? The answer is yes, we could. However, and we did look at that possibility. However, it wasn't deemed to be effective. There are a couple of issues that would pop up. One, as soon as we would take order, the warranty starts on those things. And it's really we also would start having to pay the monthly fee for the endpoints once we take delivery. And just logistically, warehouse space and actually being able, we don't have the ability to actually install that many at that time. So they'd just be sitting there. So we decided it's better to just do it this way and take delivery on the original schedule. The total amount for this increase would be $419,577.53. As I stated, this would come out of the AMI contingency project, so we do not need an increase in the budget at this point in time. Staff recommends awarding the
Eddie, can you explain to me or to this board, how did you receive information from this company that there was going to be an increase in this product?
It's in the contract. It's in the original.
Did you recently informed that we needed to pay another $420,000 because of price increases on their products?
Yeah, they did contact us back in probably October that there would be a price increase coming.
I mean, all they did is contact us and tell us there's going to be a price increase, and we're supposed to just take it all in and commit to an additional $420,000 on an $11 million budget or funds that they're receiving?
Yes, sir. As I stated, it's in the original contract.
No, I understand it's in the contract. I'm very leery that this company's receiving $11 million for products. We pre-planned, we discussed this, and we have contingency funds, and now they're coming back for $420,000. I don't support it. I'm going to ask Melly, our internal auditor, to take a look at this contract carefully. Ask the company, what exactly are we paying more for? What products? Is there any evidence? All you received is what? Communication? An email?
Well, pretty much like any product that's out there,
Yeah.
whether it's eggs or bread or vegetable. I mean, the price of everything increases.
I think, we don't push back sometimes. I think we should negotiate with these companies when they're receiving $11 million from PUB. We're a nonprofit. We're a public entity. You know, they're a capitalistic company making a lot of money. Any other comments from
I have a
anyone else?
comment. Eddie, how many, of the percentage of units that we still need to order, do you have an idea what percentage will be in 2025, and then in 2026, is it 50/50, or we're going to take most of the orders in '25?
I mean, the majority are coming in 2025. And to be fair, you need to understand that when we did, the company puts forth a bid, and they bid, okay, we'll sell you this unit at X number of dollars at the time that they do that. Part of the issue, or the reason for delay, was there was a 9-month delay on PUB side because we switched law firms, and we had to start over from scratch with a new law firm. We did a great job, but it takes time. So we lost 4 months there. We also had to wait. We also lost our contracts person, PUB's internal contracts person. That took another 4 months to get the new person up to speed and have them review the contracts. So the bid was sitting there. It was accepted by the board, but it was sitting there with no orders against it for 9 months while PUB was getting up to speed. So that's the main reason for the delay. That was internal PUB processes. That had nothing to do with the contractor. So from their standpoint, they're saying, look, we quoted you a price, and if you would have taken delivery, that you could have paid that price. However, if you're going to take delivery in '25, then that price goes up a little bit. And if you take delivery in 2026, it goes up a little bit more. That's common practice.
So when they quoted you, sorry, when was it that they quoted you?
I'm sorry?
When did they quote you?
The original quote came in '24 or '23? The original quote came in 2023. And I believe we finally signed the contract in February of 2024. So there was a pretty large delay at that point in time.
I see. So when we signed the contract in 2024, they did not update the prices?
No, they left the pricing the same. So we had zero increase from 2023 to 2024. They held pricing for us for a full year.
And we took delivery of meters and installed them?
We're just starting to take delivery. We're going to start taking delivery now.
But at the prices that were with no increase, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So let's ask this. First of all, how fast do we have to act if we're going to lock in this 3% versus the 4% that they initially proposed? And is there a deadline? Is there any ticking clock that matters now?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm sure they don't want this to drag on. And neither do we, because that just pushes us further back.
Pushes the project schedule back. So
Correct.
that's really the risk right now is if we said, hey, go back, see if you can do better, again, you know, from 4% to 3%, which is where we're at now, we would, you know, if we thought you could get 2%, we'd be risking some time, just overrun, basically, and possible future cost overrun. Okay. Just
Correct.
wanted to figure out what it was. And, of course, the other thing that probably has to be said is we can't change horses midstream, can we?
No.
Okay.
Why not?
It would, well, you'd be starting from scratch.
The expense would be significant.
Eddie, I don't think we
And
need
I can tell you for sure, we'd be paying, 3%'s not a good number, it's a great number.
Eddie, I don't think we need to change course. I think that y'all need to talk to the company, and my position is y'all need to negotiate this down. For them to just come in and say, hey, we need another $420,000 without any justification, except for perhaps an email. I want Melly to look into this and look at the contract carefully. When did they decide to bill us another $420,000? What was the original cost for these items? And let's have some information that this is justified. But to put out there $420,000 to a company that's already receiving $11 million, I don't support it, but it's a board decision.
Really quickly, the company isn't receiving the full $11 million, are they?
Excuse me?
Is it $11 million just for Badger?
The total contract for Badger is about 11 to $12 million.
Okay, okay, I wasn't sure if that was, okay, got it. Thank you.
Anything else?
Well, just real quick, I mean, did our attorneys review the contract? Paul, did you have a chance to review the contract, or?
This one, I started in February. This was signed in February, I think. So, no, I did not. But
there's
perhaps
Cody.
they were, it
Cody's
was
here.
reviewed by Spencer Fain and previously by Davidson Troilo, Riemann Garza. But slide 3 is informative to the board. This is the excerpt from the contract, which says all prices are subject to change based on Badger Meters selling prices in effect as of the date of shipment. And I think my understanding is that it's much more than 4% of what what it was bid at. So they had held their prices, and but they came back at the 3.6%, and that's what was negotiated down. This would take care of that statement, and the ambiguity that's brought up by that statement.
Maybe we can speak with Cody on executive session?
Can we visit with Cody in executive session on this item? Is there any thing to,
Can we?
any item that would prevent us?
Yes, it can be taken for receipt of attorney-client consultation in executive session, and then for action after the closed session is done.
Correct.
Okay. Are we going to table this item, or we want to take a vote on it, or wait till we go into executive, then we'll come back?
After.
All right. We're going to go into executive on this a little bit later, Eddie, and then we'll come back.
Understood.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion for move to revisit after the executive session?
Correct. This would be brought
So
back.
do they need a motion and vote on that to be brought after executive session, to table to move it after
If-
executive?
If the vote is to, or the announcement of the closed session would also include announcement that this would be considered in closed session. So that this item is considered in closed session, because it's part of the same meeting.
Yeah, so the board can motion to table it at this time and reconsider it after closed session. And then when we announce the closed session items, we can add to the list of what the board is going into executive on, add consultation with attorney regarding the contract with Badger.
I'll make it item number 4 on our closed session to discuss number 6, which is the Badger.
Yeah, so I
make
guess
the
with
motion.
that said, I'll motion to table until after executive session.
I just have a question. I mean, if you table something, can you bring it back up?
Right, I believe the motion is to take it into executive session.
Yeah, I think
No, and I just want to know if there's a motion in regular meeting to table an item, can you bring it back up?
Yes, you can table it
Okay.
and then bring
Just
it,
wanna make sure.
table it for reconsideration after closed session.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
That's second by Dr. Holman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Thank you for that. Eddie, we'll move on to closed session, but let me read these items first. At this time, the items on the agenda designated for closed session will be considered. If there's an approved motion to go into closed session meetings, this is for the listeners, will be on hold until board returns to open meeting. Number 1, meeting with board legal counsel for advice about contemplated and pending court and administrative litigation and on matters in which the duty of the attorney under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct conflict with Chapter 551, Section 551.071, including but not limited to the following: reports of local and special counsel, including regarding pending litigation involving Brownsville PUB, and updates on pending discussion with the City of Brownsville on coordination issues post-December 10th joint meeting. Presentation and possible recommendation of information upon pricing of purchased power, generation, and fuel, and their impact upon the fuel, purchased energy, and marketing charge, Section 551.086. Item number 3, presentation and discussion related to large-scale business development pursuant to Texas Government Code Chapter 551, Section 551.087, Section 551.086, Section 551.133, and 551.071. We'll also take in as item number 4, item number 6, which is the consideration and possible approval to amend the AMI Badger Inc. contract for project services extension and CPI increase.
Yes. that
Anything
was-
to add to that one?
Yeah, just pursuant to 551.071 of the Texas Government Code, consultation with attorney.
Okay, we got that in. Do we have a motion to go into executive?
I'll move to go into
Mr.
executive.
Holman moves to go into executive, and we have a second.
Second?
We have a second by Mr. Martinez. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Okay, we're moving into closed meeting.
Time is 6:58.
That's our business, that's your bread and butter.
Yeah. No, I was saying that. I agree, 100%.
I was only joking about staying here longer.
We ready to go? Okay, we are back from executive session. We have one item, Mr. Pequeño, that we're
Yes.
going to be taking action on.
Yes, prior to going into closed, there was a motion to table item number 6 under items for individual consideration. Is there a motion to take item number 6 from the table and bring back for consideration?
Okay, we have a motion on item 6 on the AMI Badger.
I'll move to bring that off the table and.
Back for consideration.
Yeah.
Dr. Holman makes a motion to bring it off the table.
Second that.
Vote positive. We have a second by
Get out of the
Mr. Martinez. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'm a nay on this one. All those in favor against it? I am against it. What is the vote again? Let's get it again.
Oh, this was just to discuss it.
Yeah, just to bring it back on the
This
table.
isn't for.
I'm sorry. All right, now we're going to take action on it.
Correct. So now that the board is taking that from the table, the item for discussion is, or the item before the board is consideration and possible approval to amend the AMI Badger Inc. contract for project services extension and CPI increase. If Mr. Hernandez wants to read the recommendation to the board.
Oh, got to get the glasses. I feel you.
PUB staff recommends the board approval for the change order with Badger Meter, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $419,577.53.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a recommendation by administration. I'm sorry. We have a motion.
I feel this is a very important project to move forward. I do think maybe we should change how we account for price increases, just a future discussion. But I move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I don't know if I can second it, but I just would like for us to verify on the contract and the amounts that are equal to the amount that you mentioned.
Okay.
So just a verification of the contract and the CPI calculation, that it's equal to the amount that you are recommending.
All right.
So it's essentially a yes, I just want us to verify that number.
Okay, so we have a second with some comments behind it. Ms. Gilbert, did y'all pick up on that?
Oh, yes, I think I understand what you're saying. I did a quick, just back of the napkin calculation, and, right, the number was less than what.
Well,
what
it could
was-
be. right? I don't know, I
So-
hadn't seen, I don't have the contract.
it would be good to verify.
And we, as PUB board, respect contracts. We're gonna pay our bills, right? That's not the message. I just wanna make sure that somebody double checks that number, that it is equal to the 400 and whatever number you mentioned.
419,500.
All right, we have a motion and then a second with some conditions. Does that count as a real motion?
Yeah.
I just want
I
to,
think technically it'd be a new motion, so if somebody wants to second that motion since there's additional conditions, so to speak, on it.
all right, all those in favor?
Wait, no. Okay, I second, or I move to also add his conditions to,
To second his.
or I second his conditions then, there we go.
Thank you, Joe.
Now you got it.
All right, now we're there. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Let's raise our hands and get a count.
Aye?
Aye.
All those against? I'm a nay. Where are we at with the motion?
Both motions passed with one
Both
vote.
motion passes.
Efficiency.
4-2.
All right, okay.
No,
One.
no, one.
No, you
to
said
start.
nay too.
No, I raised my hand, I raised my hand for the previous.
Yeah, let's clarify. So how many yay,
Yay, or wait, yays?
Yes,
Yays,
yay.
Yeses.
Okay, we got a count there, and all those against? All right, this motion moves forward. Do we have any other consideration action on future agenda items? Does anybody want to discuss any agenda items in the future, put anything on it?
Yes, water rates,
Water rates?
comparison of water
Okay,
rates.
the water rate comparison that you mentioned to Mr.
I mentioned it last month, to have a comparison of water rates with other utilities.
All right, Ms. Gilbert, do you have that? Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, just
Or
real
yes,
quick
sir?
comment, just on the consideration action on closed meeting items, there was no action taken in closed session. And then the only action item after closed was the reconsideration of item number 6, which was voted on. Just to note that for the minutes.
Thank you. All right, I think now we're ready for a motion for adjournment. Do I have a motion?
I make a
Motion.
motion to adjourn?
Yeah, we have a
Second.
motion. Second by Mr.
Well, let's slow down
All
here,
those in
guys.
favor
You want
say
to talk about
aye.
this motion a little bit? Aye.